I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Wisconsin State Representative Janet Bewley of Ashland won a hard-fought battle this week and will be heading to the state Senate to replace the retiring Bob Jauch.
St. Louis County Commissioners are considering implementing a county-wide sales tax to help pay for road upkeep. The public will have a chance to weigh in on the idea in the coming weeks.
And we'll have the latest business news and a news file story from 25 years ago.
So don't go away. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. And Julie, a lot of deer hunters are around the state of Minnesota now getting ready for tomorrow's opener.
Yeah, my husband's out there among them.
I think there are a lot of hunters who are going to be spending the weekend in the woods.
Yeah, a lot of hunting widows.
That's right, yeah. Well, we've managed to hunt down some good guests, so let's get started.
All right, thank you, Denny, and welcome everyone. Voters in Northwest Wisconsin narrowly elected a Democrat to replace the retiring Senator Bob Jauch in Tuesday's election. Current State Representative Janet Bewley of Ashland eked out a close win over Republican Dane Deutsch of Rice Lake. The winner wasn't determined until the wee hours Wednesday morning, and joining us now is Representative Bewley, Senator-elect in the 25th District. And thanks so much for being here. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Were you surprised at how close the race was in a part of the state that typically votes pretty Democratic?
Yes, I was. Of course, the campaign was prepared to work hard and get every vote, but we did not expect the margin to be as narrow as it was. I think that you're seeing those sorts of margins across the state and the nation, and a lot of people woke up surprised the next day.
When you look at that, does that indicate to you that maybe the northern part of Wisconsin is becoming more conservative, or do you think it was an anomaly?
Well, I think when you're dealing with midterm elections, you're always wondering what is being reflected in that voter turnout. Are people just choosing not to go to the polls, and a misrepresentation of what is going on is happening, or are people really representing what's going on? Time will tell, but in the meantime, we've got a Republican majority in both houses and a Republican governor.
Janet, as you pick up the ball now from Bob Jauch, what do you think needs immediate attention in the 25th District?
Well, first of all, we've got to make sure that we go into the session with an understanding of what is going to be on both the Republicans' agenda and the Democrats' agenda. And we're going to be deciding those things in the coming weeks as the caucuses meet. But for me and for northern Wisconsin, the number one issue is just to be on the agenda of the state as a whole. When we see the things that are happening to northern Wisconsin, the cuts to our schools, the cuts to transportation aid, the cuts to shared revenues, rural districts, and particularly the rural north, is being left out. We have to just make sure that we're on the agenda for all of the issues that the legislator will be taking up, and that the things that happen just don't benefit the South.
Are there some particular areas that you look at where you think you can maybe find some bipartisan support, or areas where you can work with the Republicans to get something done for northern Wisconsin?
Oh, absolutely. And even in the last session that I was in before, this is now my third election, I was in the minority both of those times, and you still represent your district. You still get things done for them. Oftentimes, that is in the hard work that takes place in committees and when the laws are being written. We probably won't get our way or our bill passed, but you can certainly have the needs of the North reflected in the legislation, and that's where the hard work and the relationships take place.
Julie mentioned early on that the race was close. What do you think voters are saying?
Well, I think that they're saying, number one, that they don't care as much about midterm elections as they do the presidential races. That's always a challenge. But I think they're also saying that they want to see some sort of consistency go on in the state. My district elected me, and parts of my district elected me overwhelmingly. So even in the very large 25th district, there are differences of opinion and large areas that are strongly Democratic and others that are more Republican.
Do you feel you can work well with Republicans?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because you have to. I was able to get things done while I was a representative. I'm looking forward to building relationships with my colleagues in the Senate. And you can't just not work with people. If you want to represent people, you have to be willing to work across the aisle.
When you look at how polarized politics has become, I think people might be surprised to hear that there are good old-fashioned relationships actually being struck up.
Well, you know, and a lot of times you don't make those relationships very, very public. You do them quietly, confidently, and humbly. No grandstanding. It's got to be the kind of quiet, respect-building relationships that you're not going to read about in the papers, but that will be actually responsible for perhaps what I would consider a not-so-good bill being made a little bit better with the people of the North in mind.
Governor Scott Walker has now won 3 elections in 4 years. Do you see him as a possible presidential candidate?
You're going to have to ask Scott Walker about that.
What do you think, though?
Well, I think that it's certainly...
Is he of presidential timber?
Not in my book,
Okay.
but then, you know, if you look at how he is behaving, the kinds of things he says and the sorts of things that are being said about him, others are certainly thinking of him with the White House in mind.
Since he is the governor and you're a state lawmaker, what do you think of the governor?
Well, you know, I wish I could say that I had more relationships, more times to work with him. As a representative in the minority, I didn't have a personal relationship with him. He didn't pick up the phone and call me when he needed advice. But I do hope that as I go into the Senate and as I build upon the relationships, perhaps I'll get a little bit closer to his outer door.
Bob Jauch was, you know, a real fixture
Yeah.
in politics in this part of the region. Did he give you any advice stepping into his position on what you could expect or what you should do?
You know, Bob is the kind of man that is going to tell you be true to yourself and be true to the people of the North. He had such a love for the people of the North, such a commitment to the common good and to our welfare as people in the North. He was committed to protecting the environment, but above all, he was genuine. You always knew who Bob was. There was never any faking going on. Bob was truly Bob Jauch from the moment he first took office until now. Then he's retiring.
Your district is certainly bigger than Ashland, but you're from Ashland. What does Ashland itself need?
Well, Ashland needs what the North needs. It needs the kind of infrastructure that the rest of the state has. We need the roads that the rest of the state have. We need the kind of funding for our schools in a way that the wealthier suburbs have. We need broadband. We need cell phone coverage. We need the 21st century. If you are able to start a business in a town in the southern part of the state because you can plug into infrastructure and transportation and everything that a good community can offer, you should be able to have those same things in the North. And unfortunately, right now, you don't.
Gogebic taconite in a delay right now. Do you think that that's something that the northern part of the state needs?
Well, I certainly think that anytime we have an opportunity for jobs, we should take a very serious look at it. Unfortunately, the legislature passed a mining bill that doesn't give the people of the North the protections that they need, nothing like what northern Minnesota has. The mining company was able to get all kinds of changes to the laws that look nothing like Minnesota law, that have nothing like the kinds of revenue for the communities that Minnesota law has. I am not comfortable with how northern communities would fare under this particular piece of legislation. although mining could be, can be, and is for northern Minnesota a very important economic driver.
What do you see you doing as it heads into the session?
Well, there are a couple of things we know that are on the agenda. What they're calling the revamping of the college and university system. I am currently on that committee in the Assembly. I want to take a very serious role in that conversation when I get into the Senate. We have a very strong university system, and we have a wonderful institution at UWS that we need to protect.
And quickly, when do you take office?
Sometime in early January. I'm really
January.
not sure.
Okay,
So I think
all
the
right.
7th, perhaps, something like that.
It's coming up.
Well,
It's coming up.
Until then, it's Senator-elect Janet Bewley. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much.
It's my pleasure.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
The dose of snow was also a dose of reality. It reminded us what life in the Northland is all about. Rush hour traffic was moving at more of a crawl this morning.
It's starting to come back as it's melting, but it's awful slippery.
Some thought they could beat Mother Nature by taking the bus, but even buses took a beating this morning, leaving riders adrift.
He just parked and he couldn't stop. He was sliding all the way down the hill and he couldn't stop. And he just said, forget it, I'm not going any further. So we sat and now it's getting late, so.
How are you going to get where you're going?
Walk, safest, not going to slide anywhere.
Many decided walking would get them to town safely, but when it's slippery, by car or by foot.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Others sat on the bus, waiting, wondering if they'd make it to work.
He slid all the way down Kenwood and finally decided to stop. It was just too bad. And then somebody ran into him in the back, so we're kind of stuck here. We're waiting for the sanding truck.
It was a little hectic this morning, but they're under control now. Everything's back to normal for right now.
Kevin DiLorenzo, KDLH News.
Well, St. Louis County is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of over 3,000 miles of highways and roads. But state and federal funding isn't keeping up, and many of those roads are in rough shape. And so the county is considering a half-cent sales tax to help pay for road and bridge repair. Before the board votes on the issue, citizens will have a chance to voice their views. And so joining us now is Keith Nelson, St. Louis County Commissioner in the 6th District, and Pete Stauber represents the 5th District here in St. Louis County. Commissioners, thank you both for joining us. Commissioner Nelson, maybe you can give us a little bit of background on where the county currently gets its road funding, how that funding comes about.
The current road funding dollars that come to St. Louis County, we do get some federal road tax dollars. We get some dollars through the state, MnDOT. And then, of course, there is the local levy roads that we support with local property tax dollars.
The majority coming from local taxes?
Actually, the majority of that comes through the federal and state, but of course, those local revenues have to be there to match those other dollars, or you don't get the state and federal dollars. Only once in my tenure of 12 years has the federal government enacted a transportation bill. Every other year it has been simply a reconsideration, or they just continuing action. And the same is true of the state of Minnesota. And that's where the funding cycles have dropped off so dramatically, and the dollars simply are not there from the state and federal sources.
Commissioner Stauber, talk about the condition of the roads and infrastructure in the county and why commissioners are considering this tax.
Well, Julie, we're looking at 1,500 miles in our county of paved roads, And right now we have about 33% that are in the pavements in poor driving condition. And one of the things that we consistently hear from the public is that our roads and bridges need to be better. And we also consider that as a public safety issue too. You know, public safety has been the #1 priority in St. Louis County, and of course transportation is part of that public safety.
So if you were to enact this tax, it would be a 1/2% sales tax throughout the county?
The percentage would be a 1/2 of 1% sales tax. It would be county-wide. It would generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million to $10.5 million annually that would be dedicated 100% to road and road construction. Those dollars are strictly dedicated to that funding that infrastructure development.
That was one of my questions. So that monies cannot be taken and used for something else.
That is absolutely correct. These dollars will go 100% to road construction. So that, yes, it's going right into their transportation system. And the key to this with the sales tax, these dollars are then being derived from all of the users of the system. And that includes our visitors to the area. It includes all of the folks that are out there in St. Louis County are participating.
Most county roads are not in the city of Duluth. Pete, you represent people who are mostly Duluthians. How do you feel about that?
Well, actually, Dennis, I don't represent anybody within the city of
Oh,
Duluth.
I see. Okay. You're on the fringe of the city.
Right. The 5th District used to, Dennis, on the western upper side of Duluth, but right now it's Hermantown and Proctor are the two cities in the other townships. But I'll give you an example. Just in my hometown of Hermantown, there's 57 miles of county roads that we want to maintain, and that extends out into the township. And we realize that the infrastructure, Dennis, is incredibly important to us. And we're finding right now at the federal level, we're not the funding isn't as stable as it should be. And that can go along at the state level as well. So when we look at whether we're going to, put this 0.5% sales tax forward, we look at what can we plan for the future for 15 to 20 years, and we have those projects that we're looking at to try to identify the best roads and keep them in great condition, and then improve the poorer surfaced roads.
Will there be some mechanism, though, to even out how those resources are spent so that Duluth, which will probably wind up putting a lot more money into the pot than some other parts of the county, will actually get some of that money returned?
Well, one of the things to remember, if you look back over the past 10 years within the city of Duluth, St. Louis County has spent nearly $48 million on county roads in the city of Duluth. We're projecting another $17 million that are actually in the schedule for the next 3 years. So we're talking about $67 million being spent within the city of Duluth. And I think what you're seeing is the very best roads that are currently within the city limits of Duluth are county roads. And it shows the dedication of our St. Louis County Board, and that includes those Duluth commissioners, the dedication to making certain that our infrastructure is first and foremost, and that the safety of our motoring public has to be a component part of every project that we do.
Highland and 57th Avenue West both opened today, I trust. They were scheduled to.
Yes.
Okay, they did. Was that mostly flood relief monies?
As I understand, some of it was flood relief money, but the majority was state money, and then the county, of course, put in some dollars as well. But if you've been down there, not only Highland, but if you've looked at 40th, which is some federal money as well, if you look at how those roads turned out and where they were prior to the construction, they're beautiful, and the public's going to be able to travel safer on those. So we're excited. We're very excited about those two projects.
Is the county pretty much caught up on all of the damage from the flood, or is this going to continue haunting us for years to come?
We truly wish that we were caught up on the flood damage. We really did our best to get out there and check every bridge, every culvert that was impacted negatively during that flood event. But the reality is that we're still seeing a lot of flood-related damage that is just showing up over a freeze-thaw cycle, over a couple of freeze-thaw cycles. And a lot of the dollars that we're looking at here are for those bridges and those large culverts. We're looking at targeting bridges that had a 40-year life cycle that were built in 1938. Now, are we a little bit behind? Yes, we are. And that's where these dollars, this is not a want. This is truly a need. And it's something that we've been bringing to our people for several months now, talking about that need.
Keith, I'm glad you brought up the bridges, because I was going to ask, are there a lot of bridges in St. Louis County, Pete and Keith, that do need attention?
Yes, there's about 600 and some bridges within the entire county, and we're looking at some of them are of timber made in, like Commissioner Nelson said, 1938. So we're looking at probably 15% of our wooden bridges need to be replaced. They're not carrying, they can't carry the loads that we'd like to carry across those bridges throughout the county, which has an impact on our economic growth. If you have businesses that have to spend mileage going around certain bridges because they can't hold the weight, that's doesn't bode well for our business community.
And we're looking at a picture of the new Brookston Bridge that just opened this week, I understand.
I see that. Isn't that beautiful?
Tremendous projects. Nearly just this Thursday and Friday, nearly $12 million worth of projects completed. And these are much needed, much anticipated projects where we have been lobbied for some time to get these done.
Since news broke that the county is considering a 0.5% sales tax for roads and bridges, what are you hearing from your constituents?
Well, Dennis, we're gonna hold 2 public hearings, but I've had calls, and the actual majority of the people that I've spoken to or called the office are in favor of it. They understand that 0.5% sales tax will be dedicated, and it can't be used for anything else, and they're comfortable with that, knowing that we're going to be using that money for our roads and bridges to better our infrastructure for the safety of our traveling public.
Now, last year the county voted against the $10 wheelage tax. Is that something that could come back if it proves that the sales tax isn't enough money?
Yeah, certainly the wheelage tax is an issue that could be brought back by a commissioner, but the reality is that the wheelage tax was impactful only on our citizens. It was not truly representative of the users of our road system. That is where this differs dramatically, in the sense that the 30 to 40%, we believe 30 to 40% of the sales tax dollars generated will be coming from people that use our roads that don't pay property taxes here.
I.e. tourists?
I.e. tourists, i.e. folks coming in that, Duluth is a tremendous regional center, and it draws people from all over to shop and spend recreational time here, as well as the outlying area. We have a tremendous amount of visitors. Now they will be participating in this. When we talk about dollars and cents, the truth is the wheelage is a very, very small amount when you compare it to sales tax. It's less than 1/10 of sales tax.
You talked about the tourists, and there have been some suggestions that maybe the tax could only be put in place during tourism season and maybe phased out when mostly locals would be paying it. Is that an option?
I'm going to take that question because as the chair of finance and budget, sitting next to the board vice chair and future chair of our board, I'll take that question. We had thought about that, but the truth is that the mechanism for that does not exist within the State Department of Finance, which is where this tax will be collected along with all other sales tax.
Should the sales tax go through, when would this be implemented, do you think? What's the earliest?
April 1st of 2015 would be the date that it would be implemented if our county board acts on this prior to the end of this year.
I see. Okay. Appreciate you both being here. We're out of time already, so Pete and Keith, thank you very much for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Well, it's time now for the week's business news from Business North. Iron Range native Tony Surdich has been named president of the Northland Foundation effective January 1st. He will succeed the retiring Tom Rainier, the group's founding president. Surdich is a lifelong Minnesotan whose roots run deep on the Iron Range. For the past 4 years, he has served as commissioner of the Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Board. Prior to that, he spent a decade in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and in 2007, at the age of 30, he became the youngest House Majority Leader in state history.
Superior Choice Credit Union hopes to embark on its first expansion since 2007 when the financial services firm constructs a branch on Grant Avenue in West Duluth. The office and drive-through facility has been designed and has gone through environmental review, according to the credit union's president. It will occupy 3 lots, which include Pox Green Corner Restaurant and an adjacent parcel, both zoned commercial. A zoning change is needed for the 3rd lot, which has received preliminary approval but is in the midst of a 30-day public comment period.
This weekend, Cook County will host an unusual but fitting celebration to acknowledge the grandeur of Lake Superior and its well-known storm season. The 2nd annual Storm Festival will take place in Lutsen and Grand Marais. Events are themed to the typically impressive waves and weather that's evident during November. The event was created by the Visit Cook County group and is scheduled to coincide with the annual lighting of the beacon at Split Rock Lighthouse. And of course, we hope that the weather cooperates for them. For more on these and other business stories, visit businessnorth.com.
And if you have something to say about tonight's show, call now, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org. You can also visit the WDSC website for updates on your favorite PBS shows, program schedules, and news and events at the station. And Julie, we wish a safe journey for all the hunters going out into the woods on Saturday.
Definitely. Safety is first.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to leave you tonight with video of the nation's Christmas tree, which did make a stop in Duluth on Wednesday night on its way to the Capitol in Washington. The tree is cradled on a special flatbed truck and wrapped to protect it during a nearly 2,000-mile journey to the nation's capital. The beautiful white spruce tree was harvested from Minnesota's Chippewa National Forest, and next month you can watch the lighting of the Christmas tree the evening of December 11th right here on PBS. Now, for Julie and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.